Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have an opportunity to work on a reel that Bobby, one of our channel viewers, has sent in for service and cleaning. This one is a Quantum. It's the Quantum 1310 CP. It's a Quantum. At this point in time, Quantum was using the Zebco label as well. So it's a Quantum Zebco. It's a nice silver case that, well, it shows it's been fished. A lot of dirt on this one. 3.8 to 1 gear ratio is not particularly fast for a bait casting reel, but we're going to take this reel apart. We'll show you how to service it, and well, we'll get this one back to Bobby so that he can take it fishing. It is a nice reel overall. Let's get started. We're going to take off the exterior pieces and parts. While I do that, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel. My channel covers all kinds of fishing reels. This one today is a low-profile bait caster from probably the 1980s. But I'll work on big saltwater trolling reels and little pond reels as well, and everything kind of in between. I love the variety of it, and well, what you see is, well, what my customers are bringing to me for service and repair. So it can be large, it can be small, and it can be everything else in between over the course of well, a week or two, and that kind of makes it fun. I'm looking for my 10mm wrench. That's what's going to take off the handle nut here. And when I take my pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray. I use a fast food container that has 8 corners in it. Those 8 corners, well, I use those corners to organize by sub-assemblies. So I encourage you to have a parts strategy, whatever that parts strategy may be. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but however you choose to keep control of your parts, you should have that planned out in advance prior to taking any of the pieces and parts off. Because once you get them off and start accumulating them in various places on your workbench, it leads to chaos, and sometimes it leads to lost pieces and parts. This is a good place to tell you to take some pictures too. This one you can probably find the schematic on if you really get into a jam. But take pictures on this as you remove the pieces and parts at critical junctions, so that if you do get stuck, they are a reference point. So for example, a picture here would show you that you have that little thin washer, and then we have these two, or at least one, two, there you go. And they usually come in pairs. Cup the washers that go on top of that side plate bearing. I think we can probably remove this side case by removing the 2 screws here. Well, actually, that's going to remove the other side, I guess, isn't it? That'll enable this side plate to come out. You can remove your spool, and that's, well, you want to always check underneath that spool, because sometimes, well, in this case we have a bearing under there. Sometimes you have screws that are holding the side plate in as well. Well, that doesn't remove this side plate, though. You have to remove this side plate by taking these 2 screws off. And again, find an appropriate corner of your parts tray, or however you're organizing your pieces and parts. Get them out of harm's way. It's real easy to just kind of speed through this and then knock parts around and, well, sometimes be unable to find them. I just did another one of Bobby's reels. I almost lost a spring because of that, but I was fortunate enough that caught myself quickly in terms of returning those parts to the tray so that I didn't lose that going forward. We've removed the 2 screws. That should enable us to lift the whole side plate up now, and that gives us a view underneath. So you can see the reel's well used. There's a lot of dirt and debris in here, and part of what you want to do when you're servicing fishing reels is, well, clean them. That's a key. The reel gets fished. It gets fished in a water environment, of course, and if that environment is salt, sometimes the salt is very corrosive, and if it's fresh water, sometimes you're winding up with mud and dirt and dust and, well, whatever's in the atmosphere as you're fishing. And well, if you want to keep the reel fishing well, you got to get rid of dirt, because dirt is the enemy of the reel. It will become abrasive. It'll do things like this. It'll kind of wear the paint down, if nothing else. We have a shielded bearing here. Looks like a stainless steel bearing. I'm going to oil that. You can leave that right in the case. You don't have to take that out. If you do, you can take it out if you like. You don't have to. Next up then we have an anti-reverse clutch bearing. This would be one of the earlier clutches. And the inner ring, or sometimes called the gear spacer. On these you do not oil or grease them. They are friction devices. And hopefully I put that in right, because, well, it's easy to put it in upside down. We're going to turn this that way. You want this one. No, we're going to just put it right back on again because we want to find out what the orientation is. And I may have been too quick to get that off. So let's hold this. Nope, that's upside down. There you go. We want to turn forward. Yep, that's the way the clutch goes. So if you install this the wrong way, what happens is the wheel turns backwards, doesn't turn forward. Okay, I'll put that back into the case there. We have another shielded bearing that's going to go on top here. And then we can remove this inner race, the main gear. Take these two springs off right away on your yoke, because they will fly out, and you can remove your yoke and pinion gear. And well, you generally don't need to remove the axle shaft, but we're going to do that because there may be a bearing under here. My guess is it's a bushing, but you want to clean your case, and sometimes removing this is the easiest way to do that as well. You want to take a picture here again so that you know where your orientation is on these parts. Now this one looks like this reel base probably had a couple of different models to it. One of them may have been that it had an anti-reverse dog base, because there's a hole here that kind of is going undefined at the moment, so that may have been where a anti-reverse dog was placed. Okay, those two I can move on the side here just so I don't knock them around. These are big enough. I'm just going to put those off to the side for a moment. Let's lift up and out on this, and yeah, this is nothing more than a bushing in here. But again, you want to clean the case. Let's go ahead and do that. Going to use penetrating oil to loosen the greases and dirt. This is your worm gear drive. You don't need to remove that. I'll take the dirt and debris out of here. And we have another bearing inside here, so I'm going to oil that. Now that's a bushing on the back side of this. You want to make sure that we clean up that lever there, because dirt will hide in there. So that little collar generally gets some debris in there. You're going to notice we have two studs where that collar is going to mount over, so it's kind of foolproof in that regard. And just a little bit of grease onto that back end so that when we put it into the bushing, it slides and slips nicely. Just like that. And now I'm going to take my screw starter, go back to my case that has those two screws. I'm going to put that in as well. Now let's, of course, that's a Phillips head screwdriver, so the flat isn't going to work all the time there. And if you can't hold it, try dipping it in some grease. Sometimes that gives you just enough adhesion to be able to put that back together. So Quantum has made and continues to make some very nice bait casting fishing reels. For a while there, they were the top one within the organization. They had the Quantum Smoke. They had the KVD series. And, well, recently, Quantum was acquired by the folks that make Lose reels. And the Lose reels have taken the dominant position. So you have lose reels first, then you have quantum, and then you have Zebco as the introduction level. Well, as you can tell, I made a little mistake. I was putting the case screw into that slot. I noticed that, and well, I'm going to put the right screws in now. That's where pictures help. That's where parts trays help. If you were stubborn enough, I guess we could have tried to over crank that screw, and we could have broken the case. All right, that one comes in, this one comes in. You'll notice that we have two Teflon gears there. Those Teflon or nylon gears do not need to get greased. They're self-lubricating. If you like, we can put a little bit of oil in there. Let's go do that. That'll just help it slide a little bit, but again, you don't need to grease that up. Next up, we want to take our pinion gear, make sure all the channels are clean. In this case, they're all cleaned. Let's grease that up. And the pinion gear. Now this one fell apart, but you don't have any way of telling. You may not have a way of telling which side is front or back when that falls. But if you look for the ramps, those two slanted pieces there, that's going to face in. So the slot on the spool or pinion gear is going to face in to accept the spool. And that's kind of how you load that in. You need to load that in before you load in your gear. This is our trip mechanism for our release. One of the things I'm noticing is there's a lot of grease on there. So let's get that old grease off of there. Wherever that grease hides, it just represents an opportunity for it to break apart. Never a good idea, because if it breaks apart, it'll jam a gear, and well, you'll have an issue. All right, this is our click ratchet. Click ratchet goes on. That click ratchet is going to intersect with this little line coming out here. That is your trip release. When you push down, this is going to push in, and then when you turn this, it's going to fire that back up. You want to make sure that that little section there where it's firing in gets a little bit of oil as well. Of course, if that was broken, you would take the screw out, remove your yoke and your jack, and take care of the replacing of that part if you were able to find out that it's available. This has a one drag washer system in it, so max drag on this one is not particularly heavy, but doesn't need to be. It's a freshwater reel. This is a hard washer. It's got a little oil on it. That's fine. You do not need to grease those. Hard washers are not permeable. And well, if they're not permeable, there's no sense in putting any grease on there, because the purpose of the grease is to keep the washers flexible from drying out. All right, we've got that. Now we can go ahead and put a little bit of grease on. And please, whenever you're using grease inside of a fishing reel, use fishing reel grease. Now, this is a quantum reel. I guess you can use quantum hot sauce if you like. I use Penn Precision Reel grease for almost all of my fishing reels. And to me, there's not much of a difference. They're all marine grade greases. And to me, the 1 pound container for my grease is convenient. And I haven't noticed much difference in all of the reels using it. So I continue to use it pretty much for any manufacturer's reel. The key is to use fishing reel grease. There's that spacer we were wrestling with before. We're trying to figure out what the right piece is here. And then we had that one little washer again. That washer should be a bearing shield. Yeah, that's a bearing shield. So again, put that on, make sure that it's turning in the right direction. I had it right the first time. Okay, all right, then this little shield goes on. That's the lower bearing shield. We've oiled that bearing shield, so now all we have to do is line these two washers up with the other side, and we can close this end of the case up. Goes through the holes. That's an oops moment there. I forgot. I always forget. Seems just my MO here. I always forget those yoke springs. That's the value of having a parts tray. You can look in there quickly and see that, well, you have some parts that shouldn't be left over. Okay, let's bring this down. And this may or may not get in because of the anti-reverse, so just turn it until that anti-reverse is sitting in the rectangular slot on the inside. All right, that's tight. Now we can get those two screws, the one of which I was trying to make a yoke or a collar for the gear shaft. Tried to make that work there, didn't. So we'll take care of that. There's two of those that'll hold the case on. And then what we'll do is, before we put the spool back in, we'll service the worm drive and the pawl. And if there's bearings on the spool, I don't think there are, but if there are bearings on the spool, we'll take care of those. If not, it's in the side plate. We'll make sure that gets oiled. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, leave those questions in the comments section. I will try to answer those for you. And, well, I generally try to answer those questions in the morning. So if you're leaving a question in the evening, then just be patient. I will try to come back to you in the morning and answer those for you. Okay, you saw that I tapped it out. That's one way to remove a pawl. You need to inspect the pawl. This one's got a lot of dirt on the shoulders of it. You need to make sure that dirt like that gets cleaned off before you reinstall. If you don't, it gets sluggish, and sometimes it can't ride in the groove of the worm gear, and, well, then you don't have a level lined operation. I like to do this from time to time. Take a can of penetrating oil, a rag, and with the pawl out, turn your assembly. That will clean up that worm gear. Get the dirt off of that. Do it on two sides because we had that carrier there as well. And then just come on back. And, well, we can reinstall now. Drop of oil into the carrier. You can reset the pawl in there. And if your fingers are big like mine, use a little pliers to help you along. And just turn it, make sure that it's turning before you put that cap back on. If it's not riding along as it should, then one of the things you can do is press down on that pawl, hold a little tension, turn the gear, and eventually you will find that it seats properly. This is a plastic cap. You need to be careful with plastic caps. They tend to break. So you must get this on square. Not only on this reel, but Shimano is another reel that kind of has that issue with it. So just make sure you get it on square, you tighten it, and do not over tighten it. And then give it a test here. Make sure that it's riding okay, which it is. All right. The spool, now the spool doesn't have the bearings in it. A little bit of grease onto the shaft so that it rides easily inside the other gears. There's a piece of line here that's gotten cut off. I'm just going to use a utility knife and a little bit of pressure, and we can remove that from the spool as well. And then let's go insert this into the one side that can accept it at the moment, just like that. On this side, you do not touch the magnetics. This is the magnetic cast control. There is a bearing here, I believe. It might be a bushing. Put a little bit of oil on that. We've already got the grease on there. Then we can just load that onto the side here. It should just press in. Then you want to make sure that your case screws go through the holes on the side. Tighten them up. We're almost done with the reel. We're going to take a pliers just for a quarter of a turn there, Just make sure they don't vibrate out. All right. You saw when we removed this earlier that we have those two concave or convex washers there. The tension washers, the purpose of that is to give you some degree of variability in the star adjuster. The flat one went on top. If you had any questions on that, you would go back to your pictures. Then take your time in putting on your star adjuster. It needs to go on free and easy. If it's not turning free and easy, stop, go back and recheck. Right now this is a little bit stuck. I'm looking, I want to make sure that I'm equidistant on all sides. I am. So I'm going to hold that inner thread for a moment with the pliers. And again, if there's any resistance there, you just want to stop and recheck your work. You do not want to cross strip those pieces. There's a tension washer that goes on top of your star adjuster. Then the handle goes on. Now our handle nut. Again, same thing here. Hand thread these. Not that there's much of an option in terms of how to do that, but hand thread it. Make sure it's going on nice and easy. If it's not going on nice and easy, you're going to rip that nut up. And if you rip that nut up, you may have a hard time finding a replacement due to the age of this reel. All right, tighten that down. Make sure that your drag washer is tightened down. Then generally speaking, if you're perpendicular on the flat side to that point, or if you have a point going towards that, then your nut cap should line up and enable you to put that lock screw in place. Been doing this a while, gotten pretty good at it. Passing that along to you. We haven't oiled the two studs on the handle. Go ahead and do that. There's no bearings in there. And spin them. Make sure that the oil works down. Okay, let's give it that final test then. Oh, that's nice and smooth. Amazing what a little bit of oil and grease will do. Checking the drag pressure, that's good. Check your free spool release. Casting is nice. Again, you have the mag adjuster over here should it be needed. Very nice reel overall. Circa the 1980s. This is the Quantum 1310 CP. This is a beautiful reel, Bobby. Thanks for sending it in for service. Well, if you've enjoyed that, I want to thank you for watching. I also want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, and everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. And I want to encourage you to have your friends watch the channel and have them subscribe. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.